Welcome back, everyone. I hope you're all suitably fed and watered and had an enjoyable lunch break. As I mentioned before, we're going to pick up again with Sara. You had a chance to hear her kind of discuss some of the topics that she naturally kind of likes to gravitate towards. So I was going to start with with that. But first of all, just I think the roots into comedy are always an interesting one. So what was your route in? And looking back on it, was it kind of a rite of passage that you feel is kind of important for someone in your industry?
Well, I think, like lots of people, the career I'm working in isn't where I thought I would be. I wanted to be an actor, and I wanted to be a very serious actor doing political theatre and making the world better, making everybody cry. And I've been an actor since I was 18. And so it was for a period of 10 years and didn't ever earn very much money, never got an agent. I wrote lots of letters. I was very industrious. I worked very hard, but I also had to work proper jobs to pay my rent. And then, so I did stand up as an experiment, basically to not creatively shrivel. I didn't know that, I didn't like comedy, and I thought it was very stupid. And then... And also I thought it was improvised. I'd seen like 3 comics, like Harry Hill, Jack Dee, and Billy Connolly, and I thought they were making it up. I didn't know they'd written it down. I just thought they were geniuses, and that's what happened that year. And I didn't know how they remembered so much of it, and how they remembered things they'd said earlier. And then anyway. And then I saw an open mic night. I was doing a sketch show in Little Venice, and one of the people in the show was a comic, and it was just skinny boys with pads. And I was like, I can do that. And I did it as an experiment, just to kind of get some stage time, and then just really loved it. And it was just a hobby alongside acting for a long time. And then I realised, now it's my job. It's my proper job. And it's a brilliant job, and I'm still very much in love with it in a honeymoon period. Yeah.
So was there kind of a big break moment, perhaps maybe not when you thought you'd made it, but when you thought, oh, I do enjoy this? What was that?
Not a big break moment. I think like most people in every single industry, in every single career, you're always looking to the future. What do I do next? How do I improve on what I've done? You don't ever really turn around and punch the air. But when you find something that you love that financially supports you, that is a brilliant line. And so I think for me, I'm always kind of checking how long, if I never get another job. And that's actually the beauty of stand-up, because it's the gigs side of it, rather than TV. There's a lot of stuff that other people are in control of. The one thing you control is you can book yourself for a gig and do your time, and as long as that's never taken away from you, then you can pay your rent. Yeah.
So we did hear some of the subjects that you kind of naturally like to talk about. Is there a type of comedy that you either like doing the most or find you get kind of the best reception about?
It's very different everywhere I go, and I think, again, like knowing a market, there are places where when essentially most people who I do comedy in front of have come to see me. So rather than a situation where they don't know I'm going to be there or they've come up with something blank, I do shows where they've kind of engaged already, and my style is quite confessional, and people who come to show after show kind of know some backstory and some background. Comedy is what they call like an authored craft, is that you take yourself and your own thoughts, opinions, and then you create them into something kind of light and hopefully entertaining.
I think probably one of the reasons none of us would want to get up on stage and do comedy is kind of the putting yourself up there to be knocked back in any particular way. How have you kind of dealt with the early kind of traditional forms of heckling, and then kind of more so when you've got kind of social media, that kind of thing, where you're kind of out there, you're on a pedestal? Do you
know what though? Again, I think this relates to, people think comedy is different, or any kind of performing is different. Like, you say like putting yourself out there. That's what happens when your job matters. No matter where that job is, if you wake up in the morning and you don't care what you're going to do, you shouldn't be doing it. Or for some people, maybe you do. That's, you want to concentrate on other things. The things that make you feel anxious and nervous and stressed, it's because it matters. And I think it's a really good sign that you're really engaged with what you're doing. And in terms of criticism, again, I think other people's opinions sometimes are very, very useful, and you can use them to shape your work. If someone has really valid feedback, but quite often you can be your own critic is already quite harsh. And other people's, you kind of have to leave that alone, because it can stop you working. It can make you think, I don't want to talk about that anymore because one man didn't like it, or one person thought that thing was too rude, rather than going, okay, that's not my audience, you go, oh, should I change for them? And I think part of getting older and more confident for all of us is to go, okay, that's relevant information, I can use that to improve, and that's just someone else, and that's okay, and I'm okay being what this is. Yeah.
I had a little look at the book you wrote, and it's kind of a little bit of a different track than you'd normally expect when you pick up a book written by a comedian or an entertainer or something like that, because it's probably a little bit more confessional, like you said your style was. What was your approach with the book? What were you, because it doesn't really come across as autobiographical or anything like that. It's kind of your feelings on different subject
No, it's
matter.
a book about evolution, how the female body evolved. So it was a year of research, and I had been reading lots of science books, and they all looked at evolution from a male perspective. They all talk about the body, the certain things about us, as if we're all by default male. And there were so many things that were really fascinating that I was finding out by reading different books, and I realised that I wanted to write something that was very, very accessible for men and women, but there are biological differences that are fascinating. Women have double the body fat of men on average, and that's for an evolutionary reason, because our bodies are kind of prepared to give birth to children, whether we decide to do that now or not. And so already when you say like confessional, that was me talking about how we have a culture that doesn't teach us properly why we have body fat, why our bodies change so much in adolescence and things like that. And I thought it was really interesting.
So what was the kind of the reaction as you spent that year going out, researching, speaking to people? Were people kind of going, oh, this has been a long time coming, or going, oh, why are you doing this?
Well, the response to the book's been really good. It comes out in paperback in March, and it's Book of the Month in W.H. Smith's, and it's listed on iTunes for March to be a favourite book. And it's all been word of mouth, really, because as you say, I'm a comic, and it's not necessarily, it's got funny bits in it, it's got some flippancy, but it's a serious book as well. And it's all been word of mouth, and I've sold over 50,000 copies, and I'm not a kind of well-known author.
Coming back to kind of what kind of topics you cover on stage, you've come out and said that you don't really see anything off as being kind of untouchable if you approach it in the right way. So what's your kind of...
I just don't believe in censorship.
Okay.
I think it's really, really dangerous when we say you can't talk about a topic. In Edinburgh, it's a big discussion always is about joking about sexual assault. And some people do, and it's like one-liners, and it's a rape joke, and people find it triggering. People in an audience, if you have a certain experience and it makes you feel a certain way, and everyone around you is laughing, you can feel very claustrophobic. But at the same time, if you say, oh, okay, let's as an industry decide not to talk about rape, then someone who wants to talk about their experience of rape on stage suddenly can't. The show that won the Perrier last year was a man talking about his experience of being raped, and I know that doesn't sound like a very funny show. It was such an important show. It was so exciting, him talking about what he'd been through. That only happens if you have absolute freedom, and that means, and like with anywhere, like where there should be freedom of speech, and we have to be really careful that we protect it, even where we vehemently disagree with what people are saying. When we suppress those people, we're not actually having a very open discussion. That's when really insidious things can happen in society. So while I could be really offended, I can get offended at another comic before I go on stage, but I still think it's very important to allow people to talk about everything.
So how do you think we kind of make that possible in wider life, make people not afraid to talk about the subjects which might be a bit uncomfortable?
It's about how we listen, and it's about how then we break down when someone is intending to hurt you, that is very different to hurting you accidentally. And so there's two different things, isn't it? That's why like hate speech is a crime, or inciting a riot is a crime, because you're intending to do a negative thing, and then they use the law to prove that. Someone's saying a thing that hurts you accidentally, or because they're ignorant. We are all of us formed by what we've learned before, and we all change our minds all of the time. All of us are ignorant about lots of things, and what happens is someone else tells you why, and you absorb that, and then you become slightly better. If we just tell each other off or shout or shut each other down, we're not improving. I think there's a huge stuff that's going on now in this country post-Brexit, where lots and lots of insidious racism has risen up. That wasn't not there before. It hasn't been created. It had been stifled. There wasn't communication. I think, as scary as it is, we really, really have to be discussing those things and going into those areas, because they don't go away.
Do forums like that make it, one, easy to have those kind of thoughts, but two, also make yourself more open to people who don't really want to listen to what you say, just want to kind of knock you down for it?
Although you can really control how you use the internet. So I mean, obviously it's a door, you decide how you open it. So Twitter people would say, I mean, I don't check my app messages, and the reason is I'm oversensitive, and I learned that really early on. If someone says something, I spend all day arguing with them in my head, and, Mum, I didn't take this. I'll give an example. 6 or 7 years ago, Edinburgh Festival, back when I used to check my Twitter all the time, and I did an interview in the Times, and the little byline they'd put under my picture said, I use my writing and my work to kind of make the pain okay. It was something like that, something about, when I talk about stuff on stage, it makes me feel better, basically. And a man tweeted me, I'll go and do something useful like cure Ebola. And I still, every day, think about this guy, like, I don't have any scientific background. Like, they would not want me in a lab. Like, I would be no use to them. Like if I just turned up, like, guys, I'm here. Like, so, and every day, how ridiculous what he was saying. And I knew what his point was. But, so I think you can choose. You can put things out there and say, I think this is a useful thing. The internet's fantastic for, like, sharing of podcasts and TED Talks and articles. And also sometimes, I don't think we should worry too much about people who don't want to engage with us. We can only control ourselves.
Looking at kind of the different things you've gone into, you said you started out wanting to be an actor, ended up in comedy, you have gravitated into acting again. Is that about kind of giving yourself a bit of diversity in what you're doing, keeping yourself interested in new opportunities, and what have you kind of really enjoyed outside of comedy in the last few years?
That's an interesting question. This morning, I was filming W1A. That's a BBC sitcom, and that's why my hair's weird. So in case I didn't do this myself. get up early for the conference, in case you were wondering. And I'm really lucky. And even though it was 5:20 pickup, and I got home from a gig last night at 2 a.m. and I feel really lucky. Like, I'm lucky, and I think that's with all of our lives, getting the opportunity to do a variety of things and things that I always feel out of my comfort zone, and that's really great. And then I go straight from here to rehearse. I'm doing comic relief on Saturday. I'm singing on live TV. I know. And then I've got 2 gigs. And when I look at a day like that, part of me goes like, oh no, that I am tired. And the other part of me goes, you're so lucky. Like, I'm 35 and I just work harder all the time and I get better all the time. And it makes me feel like I'm alive. Like, I'm not just... And I do still watch TV and have takeaways and love being at home, but at the other side of it, I go, this is it. I'm probably taking advantage of it.
Talking about the stuff you do, a lot of people know you for kind of appearances on panel shows, that kind of thing. Are those things that you enjoy, or are they kind of about building the career, opening up new doors, new opportunities? I really enjoy them. And I don't do anything I don't enjoy. And I don't think you do good work if you don't enjoy it. I don't think if you're ever thinking, this would be good for my career, you'll be bad when you're there. Like, your heart isn't behind you. Panel shows, and I know that not everyone likes to watch them, and I don't particularly watch them, but I love to do them. They give you wine in a mug, and you just sit there chatting with your friends, and they edit it together to make it look less boring. And I really enjoy it. And people, and again, I think with gender, I've not found problems, but people have assumed there'll be problems. I get asked a lot, like, our panel show's very testosterone-y. And I don't think testosterone is the right word. I don't think if we ascribe talking over people to men, I don't think that I talk over them as much as they talk over me. There's a thing where you get a bit overexcited and we don't listen very well, and you have to remind yourself, and part of it is sometimes, and again, not about gender, being aware of other people. Have they spoken for a bit? Should I ask them a question? When they're talking, you give people power when you listen to them, and it's as much about being, and I always think about those things, because my job is usually on my own. For a panel show, it reminds me, you're in a team. It's only a good show if we all have a good show. The audience is going to enjoy it so much more if everyone gets a chance to shine. And so sometimes the thing that would make me nervous about it, like, you're here because you're supposed to be funny. If I worry about other people, I find it a lot easier. Just want to see if anyone's got any questions for Sarah that they'd like to ask. Got a few more minutes.
Hi, thank you. I think you had a really tough gig at lunch. It was 5 minutes in a massive room. We don't know any of us at all. We're all eating. What did you do to build up your resilience to be able to go on and do that?
Well, it's interesting. Yeah, you're right. Where I've trained to do my job is not here. And actually, this is something that happens to all of us occasionally. Like, we learn skills, we work hard at what we're doing, and then sometimes you're put into an environment. It's interesting. It's interesting. So corporates, they're called. Corporates and comedians, you're very lucky to get to ask to do them. It's a privilege to be asked to do them. It's because you've been on telly, usually, or sometimes it's because some of the older guys, very good at them, because they're so experienced, like they've been doing it for 40 years. It's like they've got a confidence that means no one else worries about them, which I don't have. But I also, so in terms of resilience, I'm a soft person. I don't come out like, hey guys, how are you all doing? That's not. And if I was to do it, in a way, I'd be more embarrassed, if that makes sense. So my resilience is just like some niceness or honesty, or just like trying to do my time. Like, this is what I was employed to do, and if I do that in that way, and then afterwards being like, well, everyone was having lunch, and I've been you. I've been at things, and there's been a person, you're like, who's that? Oh, what? Oh, you're halfway through a conversation, and it's just bad timing. So. There's nothing you can really do. There's nothing you can really do.
Hi. Back in the day, I did my degree in performing arts.
Oh, yeah.
And I remember vividly an assignment that we had to do. And the question that we were all given was, was a statement: women can't be sexy and funny. Okay. And I just wondered, as somebody who works in the industry now, how you're tackling that kind of perception that A, women can't be sexy and funny, and
also,
B, that they have to be sexy in the first place.
That exactly is my problem with that statement. The first thing is like, as if all of us, that is our fucking...
She said it.
It's all right, you're allowed to.
How dare we exist post-puberty and not be arousing penises all the time? Oh God! And then the idea that that's an insult, and I think it's used against us all the time. The attractiveness thing, like no matter what you achieve, the idea that we're supposed to crumble if someone doesn't want to give us a kiss, and also the thing is about ignorance, which is that statement, as we all know, because they're trying to put us off track. They're trying to steal our power by telling us that we don't have it, or we're not capable of it, or that something happens because of a chromosome. I once got in a taxi, right, and the driver, just a nice taxi driver, we're talking about books. I love books. I did an English degree, and he told me he didn't read books by women because they weren't as well researched. Right. And either we can spend our entire lives arguing with that man who, and I asked him who his favourite author was, Andy McNab. Right, so, okay, that's fine. It's the end of the conversation. Andy McNab went to war. That is research, okay? And so we can either spend our entire lives arguing with those people, or just, like, fly, like, and they're in our shadow and they're behind us, and we don't have to convince everyone. It isn't your job or my job to prove I can be sexy. And like, why? Why do you want? Like, why are you? Who for? They're not even. It's for you. What do you want to be? And you do that, and those people, we laugh at them.
Yeah, I think that's a really important lesson for certainly the next generation of performers, especially.
But I think it's getting better all the time, and part of that is because we're having these discussions and we care about it, and we want that to be happening. And hopefully there'll be, I think, especially with young women, like, and the internet has really helped with this. There's so much engagement. If a teacher dared say that to a 15-year-old now, I hope they'd go home and complain to their parents and go, "You need to talk to this person." Like, they're so out of date what they're telling us.
Thank you. Thanks.
We're going to have to draw it to a close there. But
why? We're having a revolution.
I know.